Hello everybody, it's KaloaGames here today, and today we're doing a big project. This week we're building a library, but not just any library. it's it's a I'm not sure if I should call it a vampire library or just the Forgotten Hollow library because it's not like a special library for vampires, but it's run by a vampire. So, this library is actually inspired in a real life library. I looked up haunted libraries on Google and I found a library called the Vallard Library. The Vallard Library is a library in Evansville, Indiana, and it's like a really old library built in the Gothic Revival style. And yeah, I just really liked how it looked, so I didn't recreate it, but the basic structure is pretty similar. I'm gonna put up a picture here so you can see it and compare how it's looking. I basically took the colors from that library and the style. At this point I was still trying to kind of recreate it, but after a while I gave up because it's The Sims after all. Everything's not gonna be the same. Actually, one of the hardest things with recreating any build in this game is the windows, because we have a really limited selection of windows. Even though we have a lot of windows, but windows in real life come in so many different shapes and sizes and styles and decorations that it's really difficult to match them to in-game ones. But anyway, this is gonna be the basic structure of the building. I just added a little garden on the tower side, that we have a little bit of space on the plot. But you're gonna see that later. Here I'm just trying to figure out the windows, because windows usually dictate quite a bit of the floor plan. And since I saw the library and I decided that I wanted to recreate it in The Sims, I knew that I wanted the tower to be like the living quarters for the librarian, which turns out it's a vampire. Big surprise. So by the way, I actually made a vampire sim, a librarian vampire sim, for this build, which you will see her on the screenshots. In the screenshots she has custom content, but I made a custom content version on the gallery and a non-custom content version too. So you can find it on my gallery. My ID is KaloaGames, and I'll have links for the librarian and the library in the description down below. So, after I got the building done, it was time to decide what I was gonna put in this library, which it's a pretty big building for The Sims, because there's like just one scale of things we have, and there's always a limited amount of Sims that are gonna visit a lot on any given time. So some stuff is not always used, but I kind of wanted the library to be like, to feel big and sort of empty, because I would imagine a library in the hills of Forgotten Hollow it's not gonna be like the most popular library, I did make sure to get a lot of books into the bookshelves in live mode before I uploaded the library to the gallery. Because that's one thing I've noticed with the libraries we get by default in the game, that a lot of people usually go there to find skill books or stuff like that, because I'm pretty sure they had skill books in libraries in The Sims 3, but in The Sims 4 we don't, so that's kind of a bummer. So I made sure this library had skill books. As you can see here, I'm just finishing up the private collection part, which is supposedly like a part where only the librarian can go. So it is fenced with the red rope fence. I'm not sure if those fences have like an actual name, but it is fenced, so no random Sims are gonna wander into there. And we made a reception desk or a librarian desk with the counters. I tried to use as many vampire objects as I could, like from that game pack, because, well, if there's any place to use vampire stuff, it's in a vampire library, right? So I did try to make use of that, and I used some stuff that I had never used in a build, I think. Here I'm making a small area with computers because they're pretty important. Oh, that I got the idea to use that awning from Get Famous in the front of the building, and it made it look so much more legit. Like, it actually looks like a more important building in that style of architecture. So yeah, as you can see, I did like a small computer area, not very big because, Sims are drawn to computers a lot. So I didn't want to have too many computers so Sims would wander around the library. For the small apartment for the librarian, I used a secret door because she's a vampire as well as a librarian, so she probably wants to keep where she lives hidden, so nobody stumbles into her coffin or her plasma fruit or her creepy vampire books. Here you can see I'm starting to do the landscaping. I really like how it turned out. I think it turned out very nice for this build. Like, very, as they say, on brand. I made 2 little areas. Back here I make a small sitting area with a fountain in the center, nothing too fancy. And here I just make like a big fountain area. I ended up using the fountain that came with romantic stuff where you can sit and you can actually play in the water, which in summer when it's hot, Sims do like to play in the water quite a bit. So if you don't want your Sims playing there, probably just fence it off. But it actually looks really nice. Later I figure out a way to make the fountain look more in place. I get the lady statue that came with vampires, and I place it on top. It looks pretty well. Here I was trying to put the fountain on foundation. I'm not sure why. I was just experimenting. But it it didn't work. It just made it look pretty boxy. And I would imagine in a build supposedly this old, it wouldn't look so manicured, you know. I put some thorns in the water, like maybe simulating algae that had grown, and you know, maybe it's not the most well-maintained building ever. Also, the water, that fountain actually has lights built in it. So I changed the lights to be a red hue. Like, it's not super red because it's not gonna get super red, but at night you can see like a red glow coming from the fountain, which I think it's a pretty cool, creepy detail. This build is actually not very creepy for what I usually do for a vampire, and it's quite colorful with the reds and the blues and the greens. But I did add some of those creepy details, like some of the paintings and stuff like that. Here I was really struggling to find like a runner to the stairs, so I actually sized up this runner that came with vampires, and it worked very nicely, which I am very happy with, because it gives it like a, because of course I'm not gonna clutter a lot around the stairs, because in grand builds like these you don't really see that. It's usually more cluttered in the corners. So I left that space pretty open, but the rug gives it like its place, you know, like a reason to be there, kinda. Now, here I remembered, oh yeah, it's a library. We need to meet the game requirements to be able to use this as a library. So I get in the chess tables, and what else was I missing? Oh, I was missing sofas, so I make a little sitting area back here. On the top floor I actually kept it pretty chill. It has a sitting area here, and next to that I'm gonna place another sitting area, and on the right now I'm gonna place more sitting area and a fireplace, so it's more like you can come and cozy up with a book and read. Not so much business as downstairs with the study rooms and the computers. I really like how it looks, and I try to not use the same sofas over and over again, because I would imagine this library having to replace furniture every once in a while, and then it not matching the old furniture and stuff like that, so I didn't want to make it too matchy. Here I'm making the small apartment for the vampire. I know I could have not done a kitchen, but you know, not everybody wants to play with vampires. So I made a little kitchenette in case you don't want to play with vampires, and also to keep up appearances, you know. Maybe the librarian wants to bring someone into her chambers. She has to keep up appearances until they get upstairs and see her coffin. So it's a really small space, and I kinda like that. I actually played like for, I don't know, maybe 5 hours with this build before editing the video, because I just really like how it turned out, and I wanted to see how it would work in gameplay and playtest everything, and then I got carried away and here we are. few hours later. But it works really well because vampires don't really need to look after their needs very often. Just like their dark energy, I think it's called. So they don't use this space a lot, but sometimes they do, the shower and the coffin, but it's not like the space you're gonna see the most. I also added some cracks on the wall on the tower, because maybe it's not the safest tower in Forgotten Hollow. The winds being on a hill and also being a tower, maybe the winds are creating those cracks. This, at first I struggled a lot with the landscaping because I didn't want to make it look too overgrown or too friendly, like you might want to be on the outside part, like the park space, instead of on the library. I just wanted to make it like a complementary space, So I just added some chairs, not a lot. And of course we needed a sign. In hindsight, I could have made that sign bigger, but I think it looks nice small, because also old buildings don't tend to have such big signs. That's more of a modern thing I've noticed. Here I'm creating the last lounge space in the build. At this point I had no clue what else to put in this build. So I put in more bookcases and more seating areas, and I really like how it turned out. Those bookcases on top, it's where a lot of Sims go read in gameplay, because I guess the chairs are very comfy. I added some benches here on the outside. It's of course not a very used space, but it's more of an architectural feature. There you see the statue that blends in pretty well with the fountain. And now I'm just trying to make the build fit in a little bit more. I added that statue that I had never used, but I think it worked really well with the space. I don't know what the story is. maybe the vampire librarian likes to collect stuff, but it fills that corner with something interesting to look at and gives more sense to the couches. On top of the fireplace, I wanted to do a painting, but I didn't want it to be overshadowing the urn, because I thought that was a really interesting detail. Maybe it's the urn of a friend or something like that, because since she's a vampire, she's immortal. So now I think this is pretty much the build. I'm looking for little decorations I can add. There you can see I was playing around with the red rope fence, and at the end I just leave it like that. But then I tried to put a gate on it, and it glitched and it didn't work, and it actually made the fence disappear. But if you bulldoze the lot and put it back again, it works perfectly. So now just adding some lights to the place, because even though it's a vampire library kind of thing, I don't want it to be too dark, because it's a library too and you need to read. Yeah, we're almost done. I'm just finishing up the landscaping that was a little bit too bare. I could have left it like that, but just looked like the building had just been built. So I added some trees, and actually it turns out to be like a small forest out there, which I really like how it looks. This build, as I already mentioned, is on the gallery. You can search my origin ID. It's KaloaGames. And if you like this video, please give it a like and tell me down below what you liked or other ideas for builds. And here we are into the screenshots, and I'm gonna leave you with them, and bye.